Welcome. Thanks for watching. I'm Perry Timms, founder and chief energy officer of People and Transformational HR in the UK. And I'm delighted to be able to talk to you today with Ina, who will introduce herself in a second, about the concept of talent and the advent of an enterprise called the Talent Cloud, a community, a network, and a really interesting opportunity. So that's what we're going to talk to you about today. But first, Ina, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Thank you, Perry, and thanks for this conversation. My name is Ina, and I'm part of TalentCloud platform, an enterprise, a matchmaking platform for organizations. We'll talk about it more. And we came together, Perry, got to know each other in Slovenia, of course, where else? But through an HR hackathon where this idea was born. And since then, it's more than 5 years ago, we're developing this. And we are so happy that PTHR is one of our friendly partnerships who recognize the value of Talent Cloud. And we're trying to bring the word out because we believe it really speaks to the pressing issues of talent development and I would say general job descriptions and tasks that, as we know them by now. So I'm very curious how, Perry, you would kind of respond to the burning issue right now. Artificial intelligence is being one of them, and I'm sure there's a lot more, but like artificial intelligence really endangering so much. And on the other hand, what we see, and I think we share, there's so much more towards making an idea happen than just bringing it or writing it up from a collection of data. So if you can kind of share your thoughts, what you're noticing and how you see this.
And I think you're right. When we were together in Ljubljana and you conceived this concept with your team, artificial intelligence was still quite some way off in the future and was perhaps only leveraged by computer scientists and maybe some experienced analysts. But we now see it in everything and every day, whether it's pre-population in an email or whether it is interface with a generative AI tool like ChatGPT. And so some predictions that I saw recently from the OECD talk to anything between 17 and 30% of roles will be impacted by artificial intelligence. Impacted is quite a broad perspective, but it could be the absolute removal of the role and the work is done completely by machine, to either replace or enhance roles using artificial intelligence to run natural language process queries and develop, I guess you'd say, sort of the intuition and the intelligence that we currently have that is now inside machines. And it creates a really interesting opportunity and massive challenge for us, because we start thinking about the work that we do and perhaps we stop thinking about everything being confined within a job. And that's the really interesting shift for me. And I go back to 2011, actually, when I first heard the phrase work, not jobs. It was Nilofer Merchant who put it in one of her books. And I thought, wow, I like that concept that we go away from everything compacted into a job and we have work as almost like a socially architected and accessed aspect to it. And then you talk about skills, and then you talk about the systems and design and performance and so on. And it really does open up a whole new area. And recently a book was published by University of Southern California Professor John Boudreau and Ravin Jesusathan called Work Without Jobs. Again, same concept, really. It posits that companies have problems to solve, opportunities to capitalize on, and services and products to make and build and provide, and they don't have to be compacted into jobs anymore. And I think that's really interesting as a backdrop. And only today, as we're recording this, I saw a report that Indeed, the job board, has a new aspect of skills hiring, not just hiring to jobs. So I think the market is moving towards almost like a disaggregation from jobs, but a very strong focus on skills, capabilities, problems, and challenges. So I guess that I see as the sort of emerging, but perhaps accelerating trend in the market that keeps, I think, chief executives awake at night. Not have I got the right people in the right jobs, but have I got the right skills to solve the challenges and problems I'm having? So I think that's almost like the perfect storm for something like Talent Cloud. So I'm going to turn back to you now, and hopefully you can tell us a bit more about Talent Cloud with that kind of backdrop.
Thank you, Perry. Like, just one thought before I introduce a bit more on Talent Cloud is speed of change, right? Like you said, 2011, right? I mean, in a decade, the let's say the potential, statistically, mathematically, however we want to look at it, it's huge. And like again, with technology, or like artificial intelligence is even increasing. So there is no kind of reasoning behind this job description, because the change is so frequent that you just need to be more fluent and adaptable. The description doesn't matter anymore. It matters how you can kind of combine and get these skills all over the place and collect them to solve a certain challenge in front of you. So yeah, I think Talent Cloud, I mentioned before, how we define it in a sentence or two is a matchmaking platform, kind of like Tinder for organizations, if you want, but aim to solve concrete business challenges for companies, meaning, you know, we all have them every day, all the time, but there are different ways of how to approach them. And with Talent Cloud, you apply or become a member of the platform the way to pose one current challenge that you have. And on the other side, you also propose or give one knowledge or one thing you're really good at. So it's kind of, you know, reciprocal. I don't know if I got the language right, but like you exchange, the value exchange is knowledge for knowledge, and it's current, meaning, you know, I'm in the middle of trying to get this system into my team. Somebody else has done it before. How did you do it? Like, how did you feel it? What can we address? How can we respond differently? Right? So it's very interesting to get a pool of different companies. We always say that this variety or diversity of different sizes and different industries that we bring together is the added value. That's different towards, I don't know, you hiring a consultant for a specific problem that you might be having, right? But that you kind of open up, first of all, your view of how is it possible to solve your problem. So, you know, it might come from a very different industry and a very different profile of a person or a knowledge that you would expect. Plus, I think very much added value is creating this safe environment where teams from very different companies, even competitors, can come together and work on a specific challenge together. So, you know, this whole working with your competition, it sounds great, but we both know it's very hard to do on the market. And we have had cases of competitors working together on specific challenges very successfully with high added value throughout this process of being part of Talent Cloud program, which lasts altogether for kind of 9 months, just to give a bit more kind of structure towards it. So that would be a bit of my description, but like back to you, Perry, I would say, how do you, like, what is the value maybe that you see in Talent Cloud that you would say, this is why you should check it out?
I love the knowledge for knowledge trade that you talk about, because one of the concepts I believe in is that we don't value knowledge and intellect and experience in a way that we can tag it very easily to financial gain, commercial gain, business success, whatever it might be. So I think we started out by talking about artificial intelligence, and what you just described to me is how we can create more collective intelligence outside the remit of our organization. So I think there's something lovely about the invitation to be part of collective intelligence, which doesn't diminish your potential commercial gains, right? It adds and enhances in the way that you just described. Now, I think what's really important is the safety. You're absolutely right to lead with that, because I think this is about trust and reciprocity, as you talked about earlier on, so that people go, Well, I know who is playing with me. I know that we are safe to share our challenges. That doesn't mean we are then commercially vulnerable, but we can help each other with that openness. And I think that's a really powerful thing for more businesses to be able to put their hand on their heart and say, yes, we are very open about what we're challenged by. I think there's something really nice in that. I go back to my time when I worked in a large employer. It was a government organization, and I was able to work on projects, learn from other people. I'd never done that kind of work before. I was able to get secondments to different parts of the organization to learn different things. And it was all about, for me, not just the acquisition of knowledge, but the experience, the growth of skills, but the relationships that I built. This feels like you do that as well. You build relationships as well as acquire knowledge, and you build a kind of infrastructure that's so much more organic. It creates a sense of an ecosystem more than it does a kind of network in the truest sense of the word. So I think the value is in solving the problems, but there are so many residual and adjacent value aspects that come from this kind of partnership that I can really see why people would want to step in to something more friendly than simply having to contract with an expert or go to market or whatever. I think this has a much nicer co-creating feel. That's how I kind of would summarize that back. Yeah. And I think there are almost three frames I'm going to put around this. When we are dealing with challenges, we often have emotions. We're invested in a challenge, and we kind of believe we can solve problems, and we believe that we have the intent to solve a problem. But then it comes then to the intellectual side, and it's recognizing that we might not have all the intellect we need. And then there's also, like, I call it the performative part of it, where it's like, how do we measure it? How do we assess it? How do we validate it? Right. So emotion, performative, and intellect. And I think what this does is it brings all three of them really nicely into play without you having to worry overly about who to engage to get you all three of those aspects. So I think if you go to expert consultants, they'll bring the intellect and they'll have the performative, but will they have the emotion? If you don't have experts, you have the emotion, maybe some of the performative, but maybe not enough of the intellect. So I think there's a brilliant way of bringing all three of those into play with this kind of arrangement. So yeah, that's my sense on it, Nina. I would say it is from machine learning to organic and human learning.
Thanks, Perry. As you saw, I moved in between.
Yeah.
It's a living system, and this is
Yay.
exactly what I feel like you spoke to right now, meaning that TalentCloud, is creating this collective intelligence, and with the diversity of levels, industries, forms of enterprises that join, you create more of a juicy living system, right? More of like, the soil you bring to the garden needs to be very juicy if you want to grow successfully. So I think there's the added value of that. I don't know if we still don't know how to measure, or we should be measuring. Like, for me, this is another kind of level of conversation. We tend to then somehow over measure things, but we definitely know it's there. We all are aware that there is a high added value on projects and processes like this that create an ecosystem, a living system within which you gain knowledges and perspectives that you won't otherwise in a very known way of doing things. So like, I think it's a very interesting aspect.
It is. It's a lovely way to summarize, and it is, as you say, a living ecosystem. And I mean, you've just done a little move from the garden area into standing in front of a fantastic piece of art, and it does feel like this is the environment where people can cultivate almost organic and artistic representation of how you solve problems. So I think there's an almost poetic nature to the fact that you've moved from the garden to in front of a piece of art. So I guess just in kind of closing, Ina, how can people who are interested in finding out more about joining in with something like Talent Cloud as an experiment and as an opportunity, how can they do that? What's the sort of process and the thought behind it?
Yes, thanks. And indeed, it is poetic when you say it now, from organic to art. It's all in a different in a different way of viewing things. But yes, I assume under our video there will be a website link where you can get all the information about our season 5. We are collecting new participants, new organizations of all forms and all industries. So you can write to us, and we set up a call with a short half-an-hour introduction. Usually that works best. We do also have next week on the 8th of June, 3 p.m. afternoon, a webinar. So you can register on that. We'll add the link to that. So yeah, but best way for the first thing, I hope when people listen to our conversation, they spark the curiosity, click the website, see how this process more in detail works, and just reach to us through the contact page on the website, and we'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, natural, conversational, organic, communal, curiosity-led. I think that sums up all of what we found, I guess, in that fateful day at Danfoss, where we let you loose and you came up with this concept. And I love that it's got its kind of 5th cycle, and it's still going, and it's creating value, and it's showing people there is a different way to do business-related problem solving that just gets the right people's minds and skills tuned to the problem solving that we've all got. And there are more problems, as you said at the start of this, that we know what to do with, and artificial intelligence will only get us part of the way. The rest of it down to us, I think. Definitely.
Exactly.
Ina, thank you. What a great way to symbolize, I suppose, how things work these days with us, both in natural and video environments, and hope people are interested by this. But thank you for being part of the pioneering venture to get this off the ground and make it a success so far. So let's hope for more of that. So thank you, Ina.
Thank you, Perry. Thank you very much.